Good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am your host, Dr. Reggie Ratliff. And joining me is my co-host, my co-laborer in the vineyard, and expert investment advisor, Terrence Hollingsworth. Terry, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Beautiful. How are you looking today, man? How was your day?
Yeah, busy. We're kind of getting into the spring, and
Yes.
kind of the market is pretty simple to understand at this moment. We're still being driven by, um, interest rates and what the Federal Reserve is going to be doing in regards to raising interest rates. But um, as I would say, the real work is understanding you as an investor, the personal, how do you want to invest? Do you want, exposure to, um, the short term things that are going on in the market, or
Mhm.
do you want longer exposure? And that should make a very big difference about how you invest, right?
Yeah.
And so those are a lot of the conversations that I'm having. If you think about um, the banking thing with SVB,
Yeah.
um, it's not so much that we're in a space where it's we should be worried about our deposits. As investors, though, how do we think about an investment? Do you buy banks now? Because generally, in a rising interest rate environment, you do want to own banks, right?
Mhm.
They make more money, but what do you buy now? Do you buy the large banks? Do you buy the regional banks that should have some negative exposure to the bank failures that just recently happened? And so,
Yeah.
um, you know, those are a lot of the questions, but they're individually based off of how you think of yourself as an investor and what you want out of the market. So
Let me ask you this question: Has spring sprung in the stock market in turn in light of what's happening with with the banks being the largest of Silicon Valley Bank, and how in the congressional hearing there was this talk of bailout, which reminded me of 2008 bailout. It's a lot of people are afraid, So what's your take on that?
no, we're different than 2008, right? There was a lot of risk with most of the banks in 2008, but now a lot of the banks they have the cash. Silicon Valley Bank was a unique situation, right? They had $200 billion in assets.
Yeah.
They were conservative in terms of the way that they were investing those assets, but the truth is when everybody asks for their money, you have to deliver, and they wasn't quite prepared with the liquidity to do so,
Yep.
and it caused them to have to sell those assets early, which meant
Mhm.
they took a loss on it,
Yeah.
and
Big loss.
that's where we are. But overall, the entire banking system is pretty healthy. I will tell you this. I try not to give advice, right? Individual
Right.
advice, right? But um, Bank of America is below $30 every time that I bought Bank of America below between 25 and 30. We've made money on it, and Bank of America is a,
Mhm.
a large bank. It's well run, um,
Yeah.
and it's one of those kind of things that once you kind of understand, your risk and manage your risk, you could probably make some money.
Mhm.
Huntington Bank is $11. Is
Mhm.
trading at a discount to book value and to his peers. Um, there are some great opportunities to own banks, and they pay good dividends and get capital appreciation because, again, when you look out long term, the banking sector in a higher interest rate environment are good investments.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad that you were able to provide some clarity and transparency to this, because not everyone can speak on this level when it comes to sensitive matters, such as the banking industry in general. And so I just wanted to point out to our audience that we do hold financial education and wealth management classes every Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you are interested, you can email me directly at sratliff68@yahoo.com. And I'll, in return, will send you a link to access the class. It is free. There's no charge. You're getting free financial advice or conversations from Terrence and myself, even from an economic standpoint. We are experts in our craft. We don't just make up anything. And we're going to talk more about that, including banks filing bankruptcy. Hello, Sister Connie Rouse. So if you want to know that and any other questions, tune in on Thursday and we'll talk more about that in depth. But for now, we're going to transition to our candidates because this is election season. We have three great candidates that I'm about to have a discussion with at this very moment. So thanks as always, Terry.
Yeah. So before I sign off, I do want to say one thing about about the candidates, not these particular candidates, but just voting in general. Brandon Johnson, a friend of mine, he's running for mayor in Chicago. And he's down in, latest poll said that Vallis is, has a slight lead. Now, I'll say this. We can solve our own problems, whether we're talking about finance and closing wealth gap or social justice issues in terms of how do we turn our schools around and things like this. It requires for us to get out and vote. And that is the bottom line. Voter turnout is low. Lowest has been since 2006. And when we don't vote, we lose, and we lose our voice. And people that don't have our interest get into these offices, and they make decisions that affect us. So let's get out and vote. The vote is the election day is on Tuesday, and please don't forget to do so.
Your voice, your vote counts. With your vote comes a voice, and we need greater than a 10 to 15% turnout amongst African Americans. That is a must, and that is the truth. So you can save your energy from complaining on social media about Vallis or Johnson or your viewpoints, but unless you vote, what you say doesn't make a difference. Your action.
That's an absolute. So I'll see everybody on Tuesday.
Thank you, Terry. And I'd like to bring on our three candidates. First, I'd like to bring on Ms. Sandra Hixson. This is not their first rodeo on this podcast, so we're inviting them back, and they kindly accepted our invitation. So Ms. Hixson is a Maywood native, graduate of Proviso East High School, Pirate Nation, of course, and a former substitute teacher at Proviso West High School. She has served on the District 88 School Board, Bellwood, and Ms. Hixson believes fresh board leadership can develop and implement policies to create positive and long-term change for all District 209 students, and she wants to ensure greater transparency and accountability. Ms. Hixson, if you will.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Would you like to make a brief opening statement?
Just listening to a comment that was made about voting and how it is imperative that everyone gets out and vote. We can sit up and we can yell and scream and complain about, our kids, our taxes, whatever's going on in our communities. Yeah. But if you don't vote, you're part of the problem. So just get out and vote.
Absolutely.
As far as myself, lifelong resident of Proviso, graduated from East, educator, mom, wife, grandmother, community. I actually sat down and I thought about it. I have been involved in the community for 61 years.
Wow.
61. That is a long time to be active in community. So pretty much, I'm running for transparency and accountability accountability. But it's basically all about the students. It is truly the students first.
Absolutely.
They're a whole student.
You're speaking from experience as a former District 88 school board member in Bellwood, and so you know what it looks like. You know what success and hard work and activism looks like.
Yes.
So thank you. And thank you again, Ms. Hixson. We're going to bring on Ms. Jenny Barbahen. Ms. Barbahen is a lifelong resident of Forest Park. She's worked to bring positive changes to the district through her work as a co-chair of the Proviso Action Team for Partnerships under former Principal Dr. Patrick Hardy. Jenny plans to focus on improving the work environment and school culture in the district for teachers, for students, and for staff. Ms. Barbahen is the mother of 4 children, and her oldest attends Proviso East High School. Ms. Barbahen, how are you this evening?
Hi. I'm good. How are you? We didn't get snow today, so it is a much better day than I thought it was going to be.
See, people here in the DMV, they probably think, why would it snow in Chicago? Because it's Chicago. You know, you got Lake Michigan right there, so it could snow to like June. So
yes, crazy things happened, right?
Absolutely. Would you like to make an opening statement to our watching audience?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Jenny Barbahen. I'm a lifelong Forest Park resident. I graduated. I went through junior kindergarten all the way through 8th grade in Forest Park Public Schools. Now I'm a mother of 4. My oldest is a senior at Proviso East, and he is ready for June 10th graduation day. He is just ready to cross that stage and move on to the next chapter of his life. But I'm very dedicated to my community. I'm very dedicated to public schools and ensuring that every single student within Proviso Township has a viable option in our high schools.
Absolutely. So does your son have senioritis?
He definitely has senioritis. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of common these days, especially at this time. So I'm glad you're able to join us. I know your schedule is busy as well. So thank you. And without further ado, I'd like to bring on last but certainly not least, Mr. David Ocampo. Mr. Ocampo is a Westchester resident and data engineer with a global manufacturing company. Mr. Ocampo plans to bring his experience in analyzing logistics and financial data to the District 209 School Board to ensure fiscal responsibility that makes sure it's a district priority. He wants to reach out to District 209 to approve community outreach, which is important to underserved groups, which is also important, including special education and English language learners. Very important. David, his wife, and his 3 young children regularly volunteer at the local food pantry, and his family is active in Cub Scouts. So without further ado, Mr. Ocampo. Good evening, Mr. Ocampo. How are you? I think you're on mute. There you go. Nothing yet. No, little difficulty. Nothing yet. Can you ladies hear him? No? Terry, do you have Mr. Ocampo muted? Do you control that? I hear background, but okay, so Terry can't hear you, but maybe if you came out and came back in, just a suggestion, let's try that. But we'll continue. You know, when we first talked, ladies, back in September, you were in the preliminary stages of campaigning, and you shared your vision and how you're going to help, bring District 209 back to respectability. My words. But what have transpired since September of last year? What has been going on? I'm sure a lot, but kind of share that. Let's start with you, Ms. Jenny.
Well, I feel like a completely different person from when we first came on till now. And I feel like I have learned so much in so short of amount of time. One of the things that Sandra, David, and I have been doing is listening to our communities. We've been going to every event we can, and we've been just listening to everyone. And I feel like it's been a really valuable experience. Because one of the frustrations I had as a parent going into this, campaign was that I felt unheard for the last 2.5+ years. And I felt like our community really needed to be listened to. And so we've spent a lot of time just listening and letting people share their thoughts and their visions and their goals. And it's been amazing because our visions and our goals really align with each other, coming from different villages, different walks of life, different experiences, different ages.
Yeah.
We all really do share the same common thread of wanting better schools for all of our children. So that for me has been really positive.
Mhm. Absolutely. You bring up the fact that you've been listening and you've heard the residents. What kind of things have they been expressing in terms of concerns? If you can touch on that briefly.
Sure. I think some of the biggest concerns is that they haven't been listened to, that they're kind of feeling like they're either talking into a void or that they have concerns, but then there's no follow up. There's no addressing of those concerns. So it's kind of falling on deaf ears. I think one of the biggest concerns is just parent communication within our district, and making sure that our students are safe. Safety is a big thing. And we've heard a lot from our special education parents and our English language learner parents that they're feeling really lost, and they don't feel that they're getting the services that they so truly need to have success.
That's very unfortunate to hear. And I want to ask, David, can you hear me? Okay. So I would like to just have you jump right in. Just talk a little bit about yourself if you can. I think we can hear you okay before we move forward. Okay. You got the mic. Can you? No. Yeah. So, yeah, it may be your headphones, but okay. So, why David? Say something real quick. Okay, he dropped out. He probably could come back in. Miss Hixson, let me ask you the same question. What have you noticed since September of last year, compared to now?
Our growth, actually, David, Jenny, and I, just growth. And Jenny said it best. When we go out and speak to the communities, our various communities, they just want to be heard, and we listen, and they want trust. They want to know if we are trustworthy. They want to know why, when they talk to people, they're not getting the answers that they deserve. And it was frustrating for us because we kept looking at each other like, oh my God, are we really hearing that people are sending emails and calling and nothing's being done? The bus schedule or the kids' school schedule or that horrible lunch that the students were eating. Nobody listens to these parents. Why not? They're taxpayers. These are our students. This is our investment. And we were really just frustrated. We just could not believe what we were hearing. Okay. And especially from our Latino population, they were just like, we just felt like no one wanted to hear what we had to say. And that's wrong.
Wow. That's very unfortunate. Yeah. I want to stick with you for a moment, Ms. Hixson, if I may. Now, you've been a school board member before in Bellwood. And this was in the 90s, correct?
The 90s, yeah.
So if I may ask, I don't mean like back in the 90s, but it was a couple of decades.
Back in the day.
Right. What is different between how schools were ran back then from superintendent level, school board level, member level? Was it more care back then as it is today?
Oh my God, yes. And it starts at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to put it out there. We had two incredible superintendents. Dr. Alan Smith was from CPS, and then Dr. Philistine Murphy. Dr. Murphy lived in Bellwood, so she was homegrown. Right. She was a phenomenal superintendent. So she was she was elementary school teacher and then worked her way up to the superintendent. We, as a school board, collaborated with the mayor and the community and the stakeholders. Once a month, we would get all of our parents together and we were like, okay, tell us what's going on. How can we improve certain things? And we did. And one of our biggest advocates, and we became friends, was Miss Tanita LaShore. She was just like the parent coordinator, and she did it for free. And so that caring, more parent involvement, that's what made School District 88 a huge success versus that with this school board.
Okay.
Not throwing any shade out there,
Sure,
but that's
right.
what made the difference.
Okay. The connection to the community and being able to take time for the parents and things of that nature.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's kind of lacking. In that same vein, before I ask you a question, Miss Jenny, David, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me now?
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's so clear. Nice.
Excellent.
So please.
Thank you for
Yes,
having me.
make opening comment if you can.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the patience. It's always good to have a backup device. You know, my main computer didn't work, my regular phone didn't work, and now I'm on my work phone. And speaking about backups, it's always, what comes to mind is the lack of IT services at the school. That is like a central point of failure for anyone that's familiar in IT, and I am.
Yeah.
You can't just have a skeleton crew in IT. It's very important to have it well staffed and well funded.
Absolutely. Is that I understand? Was it earlier this year? There was, most of the IT staff or all of the IT staff was terminated or laid off or furloughed from District 209?
Not earlier this year. I think within the first 6 months of Henderson joining District 209, he started gutting key services such as IT.
Right.
And IT is now down to like one IT person per building. So speaking about like central, a single point of failure, if that person, something were to happen to that person, then you're without IT services. Aside from it being overwhelming, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Absolutely. And I want to quickly bring back in Jenny. You also work for a former principal in some capacity, Dr. Patrick Hardy. Just talk about that a little bit and see where the opportunity to improve in areas where it was once strong, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Patrick Hardy was, to me, an inspirational principal. He took the building, Proviso East, and he reinvigorated respect and pride. So when you walked those halls, everybody that walked beside you and with you, the teachers, the students, the staff, every person had pride in their space, pride in their education, pride in their day. And it was really exhilarating to have. He was very inspirational. I served on the action teams for partnerships with him. I was the co-chair. And what we did was we had a lot of issues to tackle, and there still were, like graduation rates and test scores and things like that. And we wanted to focus on just one thing. What can we do to make the biggest impact? And what we did that year is focused on chronic absenteeism. Because to us, this group, we thought if our kids' butts aren't in the chair every day, they're not learning, right? We can't affect these big things like graduation rates or test scores if our kids aren't in the building every day. So we really chose to tackle that, and we were gaining ground. We had a plan, and one of the things he said to me was, "You always swing big. We might miss, but you always swing big." So that carried with me through the years, and I really take that to heart. And that advice is really kind of why I'm here running for the Board of Education, right? So I've worked within the school throughout the years that I've been here and before we even got into high school. But I'm here and I'm swinging big.
Nice. Well, we'll see if it connects. Definitely want to thank you for being transparent. And I want to ask you a question about transparency. There seems to be a lack of transparency with board leadership, from the superintendent position to the school board member positions. And I'm not one to throw names or anything like that because we're in safe space. But in that same vein, I want to ask what you bring that would be different than what's going on. And I want to start with you, David, if I can. What will you bring to the table that will be different in moving District 209 forward?
Moving forward, well, with regards to transparency, it's It's establishing those connections with the community. Those ties have been severed, and it's quite evident at the school board meetings when public comment is pushed all the way to the end, to a point where the community cannot voice its concerns, right? Like at the last board meeting, I think they started public comment at around almost like 10:45. Out of the dozen people that signed up to speak, about two remained. And it's done on purpose, right? It's intentional. They don't want to hear the public voice their concerns. We need to change that. We need to be open with the community, and sometimes the news that they'll share won't be favorable, and that's just being realistic. As we've been chatting and canvassing and campaigning with the community, we've heard their concerns. Some not so good, right? But we have to work toward addressing those. We just can't turn a blind eye toward them. We won't get better as a community if we continue to ignore the community, right? The school district should service the community, and the community should be proud of the school districts themselves.
Absolutely. As a District 209 graduate, it does pain me to the depth of my soul what's going on in District 209 back home. And, I pray every day that after this election, real change would take place, because there's rhetoric and then there's substance. So I do pray that the victors will turn this rhetoric into substance. This vision would become a reality. And I want to just ask you a follow-up question, David. What kind of changes would you make? Because you said some good things, not so good things. Public comments at the end, which is unfortunate. What would you change? What are a couple of things that you would change?
Well, the data engineer in me wants to have like a database so that we could catalog all these complaints, because if you start hearing the same complaints every time, you start to notice a trend, right? And then that helps you prioritize the complaints. As of right now, I'm not even sure who documents those complaints, where they're stored. It's almost, I hate to say it, it's almost pointless to have public comment if you don't follow up. And I think that would be the first step, is to catalog those, and then we could prioritize the community's concerns and see where they align with board priorities.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that same question to you, Miss Sandra. What do you bring, in addition to your experience working in school board capacity in the previous administration? What experience would you bring that will start effectively changing the school board?
Well, the one thing would definitely be looking at the school board the way it is now. And David hit upon it, that last school board meeting. So I want to go back to and answer that question. He said it was 10:30, 10:45. The one thing that Jenny and David and I want to do is to change that. These parents have worked all day and they're coming to our house. And so why can't we let the parents speak first? That if you let the parents speak first, yes, there are going to be things that they're probably going to say that are going to be offensive to us, and it's okay. Right. They have that right to say that. But if it's offensive, that means we're not doing our job, right?
Right.
So then we have to work on it. So that's one. For me, it is all about integrity and being a very principled person. Because if you're not principled, you can be easily swayed to the other side. And as long as you are focused solely on that student and what is right, everything else will fall into place. Everything else will fall into place. And we have to rebuild trust in the community, because trust has totally been destroyed. So we have a lot of homework to do.
Yeah.
I want to
ask you a follow-up question, Ms. Sandra. So teachers have been suspended for speaking out.
Yes.
And there's no secret about that. Where there was, a goal of terminating them, but they did not get that wish. How does that even happen? Where a teacher speaks out and then there's this effort to terminate said teacher or teachers without having evidence, or because, they're upset with them?
It's real easy. and this is what the public needs to know, count the votes. Count the votes. If you got a board majority and they're not telling the superintendent, because the school board has one employee, and that is the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
So if the board is going along with it, that's why teachers are being punished, which is ridiculous. They have the constitutional right to speak out.
Yeah, yes.
I don't understand how any sitting school board member that swore on an oath, that read their oath, would allow teachers to be terminated based on something that was said or inferred in an email. What kind of society are we living in?
So is that an indictment on the school board or the superintendent or both, Ms. Sandra?
Both.
How so?
Okay, so as a school board member, you've read what the law is, what is the law states, right? You have an attorney sitting there. Shouldn't you be asking the attorney, hey, are we going in the right direction here? I know from Bellwood School District 88, I know the difference between may and shall. Shall is the law. You know that. Mm-hmm. And may is, okay, I may or may not. But as a school board member, if I'm sitting there reading it shall, then I need to act accordingly. Mm-hmm. And as far as the superintendent, what you allow will continue. Right?
Correct. Ms. Jenny, I just want to put, that same question to you, as far as what you bring to the table that's unique and your thoughts about the controversies that have taken place since the first week of the school year with the bus routes and absentee students and no substitutes and complaints to get to superintendents, parents not being heard and everything, they were saying. I mean, list goes on and on and on. Your perspective, please.
Thank you. So what I bring to the table is I'm a working mother. For almost 16 years now, it's almost my anniversary. So I have a very good, rational, reasonable brain that likes to look at problems and then find an answer. As a parent of 4, I have like I said, a high school senior, and I also have a kindergartner. So I am dedicated to being here and in the education and the public education system for a very long time. I also think I love to bring the continuity from our elementary foundation schools all the way up through high school. So I think that's one of the things that I bring to the table is I have these connections with our foundation schools, and I love to bridge those to the other 9 communities as well. Mm-hmm. Speaking to the first day of school, I have no words to really describe the level of disaster that was. I know teachers got their schedules 5 p.m. the day before school started. We signed a bus contract 2 days before school started. Students got their schedules the evening before school starts the next day. I talked with one teacher who had a brand new class. He had never taught this class before ever, but he had to go to work the next day and was hoping that there would be, and then was told that there was going to be a folder of information for him to teach his class on. And the folder was empty. So there was no book, no curriculum book chosen. He basically had to build the class on the first, as he was teaching the class. So, and that's just one teacher example. And at least I guess those students had a teacher in the room where many, many, many hundreds of students sat in classrooms with no teacher assigned. At the very base level, the school district is responsible for providing an adult in each classroom with minors. That is a duty of care. So even at that base level, the duty of care was negligence on the first day of school.
Does that problem still exist today, Ms. Jenny, as far as the lack of?
Well, we're almost in April, and I think that we have mostly solved the teachers and classroom issues, but now we have overcrowded classrooms, right? So we have classes running where you can't really get the full value of your educational hour because there's either not enough desks or there's not enough time to address 35 plus kids.
Oh, I can relate. Students 30 plus. I mean, I can relate, and that's why I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to prepare during the summer, or you know, at least before school starts, when it's teacher meetings and boot camps and things like that. We have time to prepare the syllabus and the
Right.
agenda for the school year. So that's
a
very
crucial aspect for our teachers.
Yeah, indeed. I want to switch gears for all three of you. I know you have opponents. All right. What makes you different from your opponent? What advantages do you have to make you a better candidate than your opponents? Let's start with you, Jenny.
Sure. I think one of the things that Sandra, David, and I have as a group is that we all have different skill sets, and we all come and form together this really strong team. We all have strengths and weaknesses with each other, but we genuinely like each other and we genuinely want to collaborate with each other. I think some of the opposition we can see is we have the opportunity now to make decisions based on the outcomes of their tenure and their experience. So we can kind of judge their last 4 years based on the outcomes. And for me, I always look at the student outcomes. So what is the impact on our students? And both of the other slates have incumbents. We're the only slate without an incumbent running right now. So I think our strength is that we don't have relationships that are strained. We are here to build fresh relationships with everyone, and we want to work with everyone and collaborate. And we just haven't seen that from the incumbents.
Understood. Thank you for your answer. Ms. Sandra, same question to you. What makes you what's a more viable candidate than your opponents on the other tickets?
Well, as Jenny stated, with Jenny, David, and I, we truly are a team. And we're not coming with that baggage. We're not. I mean, like, I'm not throwing shade, but I'm just keeping it real. Right. Just because you have experience sitting on a school board, the question becomes, how effective are you sitting on that school board? Yeah. Are you sitting there and you're not getting the emails and they're not listening to you? How effective are you? Are you just sitting there so that you can get your family and friends jobs? So are you really for the students? Are you really for family and friends? And David and Jenny and I are bringing a whole fresh perspective about our students.
Yes.
Discipline, teachers, more mental health. So that's what David and Jenny and I bring. We're looking at the whole students, repairing trust in the community.
Very good. And there's just a comment by Jeremy Horn. I'll get to you 1 second real quick, David. Said, and you guys are not voting for a charter school?
No. Okay. No, I'm not. We're not. No.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha. And the same question to you, Brother David. What you did and what do you bring to the table? Love your candidates.
So to echo both Jenny and Sandra, we complement each other. And then, where we lack in certain aspects, we make up for it with our collective strength. And as a numbers guy, I will go there. We are a complete slate. We are a complete slate. There are 3 seats. There are 3 of us here. And so what you'll find is we are within. You'll find us throughout the community, actively engaged. You'll find us working with all levels of the school, right? We work with the teachers. We're connected with the students. And then at the school board level, we bring a fresh perspective. And as Jenny mentioned, that we are willing and able to work with whomever, as long as it's centered around our students' goals and success.
Very good. I want to take a deeper dive, if you will, business term, a deeper dive into a topic that really haven't been discussed that much, and that is the usage of tax dollars, the property tax dollars that are allocated to the school district. Are they properly utilized? And if not, how can you better utilize it? I'm not sure if you've seen the school budget, or the district budget, what have you, but starting with you, Ms. Sandra, what is your perspective on the dollars? Because that bottom line is, the dollars must be in play.
Well, David always says he is the numbers man, and he is. I'm like, oh my God. So, as far as that budget is concerned, I believe it's 20, we're only spending 29% of the budget on our students, and that should not be. We should be spending more money on our students than we are. And I believe we were told that our budget is $105 million.
Okay.
Where's this money going?
Right.
Shouldn't the vast majority of it be going to our students?
Well, that's my question. Is it allocated in a way that is maximizing student performance?
No, it is
How would
not.
you change that if you could? I know you can't do it right away, but in terms of moving.
Sure, by investing in more resources. We do need more IT. I don't even know about our Chromebooks, how up to date our Chromebooks are. Investing in teachers, investing in counselors. And then, there's another component to that too. What about mental health counselors?
Yeah.
So there are things that we can do with the budget to help our students.
Thank you.
And one of them is definitely more books, more teachers, more IT.
Yeah, definitely. Books, IT, teachers, mental health. And thank you for that. And Ms. Jenny, I'm going to ask you, as far as the budget item is concerned, really didn't see anything about career growth. I know there's a barber school, and that's all well and good, but how about other career paths, such as nursing or financial education or personal finance, engineering programs, something like that? I mean, couldn't the money be, the dollars be utilized in a better way?
Absolutely.
So speak on that. How can that happen?
Absolutely. Not all, I think, in 2023, we have to realize and face the fact that not all of our students are going to be college bound, and we have to make career pathways for our students. We do have a barber and cosmetology program, and I did double check. We used to have a CNA program, but that has not been funded, so that no longer exists. We do have some very light manufacturing, automotive, and culinary options, but again, they're not being resourced and funded properly, so they're not operating effectively for our students. That chaos at the beginning of the school also really didn't help get our kids in the right classes. We had students who had all electives, no core curriculum classes. So that didn't help us make sure that our counselors are the ones who know what our students need and where they want to go. So this whole year has been kind of in chaos. So that hasn't helped our different trade programs also. Also, we're in Cook County, right outside of Chicago. We are a very trade and union heavy state, and we should be taking advantage of these opportunities with unions and partnering with our iron workers, our plumbers union, our carpenters union, and creating apprenticeship paths and making sure that our students that aren't college bound have a career option and that they are going there. And they can make a very good, decent life for themselves. And we need to provide all of these options for our students. So I would definitely favor a budget. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
I was just going to say I would definitely favor a budget that had focused more on student resources, student initiatives, and we have to get closer to the state average. We're, like Sandra said, we're only spending 29% on instruction. That's well below the state average. And we have enough funding with our $105 million budget to make those things happen.
With that partnership, and I'm glad you mentioned that, include like internships, externships, opportunities to, connecting with these employers. I think the SEIU is the largest, here in Illinois. So, and the president, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead. I think the president of the SEIU is Proviso East graduate Greg Kelly.
Yes. Yeah. So, and we have all of these great partnerships, and we're just not taking advantage of them. So, I mean, that's one of the things I'm dedicated to as a parent who does have a student that's not college bound, that he's more career and trade bound. So that's something I'd really like to strengthen and bring in and get our kids into a career.
I love it. And the same question for you, Brother David, please.
Yeah. Well, to further Sandra's comment about an example of mismanagement. Every month, the credit card. The credit card is not itemized, right? And it's several tens of thousands. It averages at least like 40,000 monthly. I don't know about you. I never charge that much onto my credit card, but
Right.
but having at least like 40,000 on average monthly that is not itemized, it's not transparent either.
What
Because
do
when
you
you go,
mean not itemized? They have an accountant, don't they? Don't they have an accountant and an accounting system to track that?
they have a system, but like when you go to look at the bill list, it is hundreds of pages long, and it's in a format not conducive to analysis, right? You get a PDF, and it's just entries that aren't really clear. And when you go to analyze that, no one, God bless you if you try to analyze 110 pages in a PDF format. You're going to find that some things they're not matching, right? There's some things just don't jive well. And what I'd like to see is have it in a format that's conducive for analysis, like a CSV or Excel file that's readily available for the public to analyze and scrutinize. We're not seeing that. So that right there is an example of mismanagement. Now let's talk about something that's happening in the not too distant future. They're trying to get a bond passed about to the tune of $44 million, right? If they can't manage responsibly the credit card and finances, right? How do you expect them to manage that $44 million? When, if it gets passed, hopefully it does not get passed, but that's happening on April 11th, if I'm not mistaken. They're voting on that. So be mindful that mismanagement is happening at all levels, and it needs to be curtailed.
Now, you speak of mismanagement, and I know that's a very sensitive, topic, mismanagement of funds. You think of mismanagement of funds, you think of, misappropriation of funds, embezzlement, those kind of things. Are you insinuating that is taking place, or just because they may not have a CFO or somebody responsible to monitor the funds that might be happening?
Well, yeah. Well, when we see often that that the superintendent is spending vast amounts of money on what he calls chat and choose, I mean, that right there is a prime example of mismanagement. Now, embezzlement, I don't have any evidence to that, but it's just there are not good financial stewards of our tax dollars. And I'm very concerned with the direction that they're going. And we cannot continue to allow them to do that, because what will end up happening is our property taxes will be raised to finance and cover these debts.
Yeah. Lack of transparency, it sounds like Miss Eileen Oliver stated. But you need a financial person in place. So what is your intentions if you are to be elected, if and when you are elected, what are some of the things you're going to do for the short term? Let's start with you, since you're right there.
Okay. So our team believes in initiating an audit at all levels to understand what exactly is going on, especially around human resources. Now, I want to steal Sandra's thunder on this, but we need to understand who's employed, do they have the credentials, and then we can start assessing personnel, assessing expenses and whatnot. I think an assessment and an audit is needed.
External audit or internal audit? External, I'm thinking external audit from a CPA firm, perhaps?
Well, we're still waiting on an audit from 2022. So yeah, we need to consider our options.
Okay. Miss Sandra. I think I poked the
Yeah, he poked the bear.
Yeah, he poked the bear.
Yeah, David did steal my thunder. But I love you, David. Yeah, as David said, in all seriousness, we do. When David, Jenny, and I first met, that was we came up with a 30-day, 60-day, and a 90-day goal and vision. And the 30-day were the audits. And that was, the financial audit and human resources audit. We need to know what has been going on with our finances. and what is going on with the superintendent. Now, again, he's our sole employee, but if we don't have good people in place in human resources and a good CFO, we're lost.
Yes, indeed.
And people are looking for us for answers. How can we be accountable if we don't have good answers to bring back to the community and say, okay, we understand what's going on now. And so now we can come to you and say, here was the problem, here is the solution, give us time to work on it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. And same thing with you, Ms. Jenny. Same question to you.
Yeah. So I think it's really important in the first, 30 or 60 days is that we reestablish committees. We have no committees working on anything. So alone, 7 board members alone cannot find all of the information and make all of these decisions in a very respectful and thorough manner if we don't have committees. We do need to reestablish a financial committee, a student success committee. We need to partner with our teachers on an instruction and educational committee. So one of the first things I would like to do is to kind of get that ball rolling, making sure that we're establishing that, because then we need to share the work and we need to collaborate and communicate within each other. And we also need to have hold our superintendent accountable with an evaluation. There has not been a formal evaluation of our superintendent. So he is the one employee. The board needs to evaluate him and we need to go from there. Does he need resources? Does he need additional help and trainings and professional development as well? So we need to figure out what's going on with our employee and then build collaborative teams.
So you spoke of evaluation. Illinois is an at-will state. Illinois is an at-will state, right?
Yes.
Does that include superintendent?
We would have to kind of have some legal advice with the contract. I do believe there are aspects of this contract that do go against kind of Illinois state ISB laws, as far as paid out more than 20 days, things like that. But
severance package.
Yeah. His contract does say that he needs to be evaluated. So that is a crucial and critical part of the contract.
So I'm gonna ask you this first, and then the other two candidates, if you'd like to chime in, please do so. Do you believe, after evaluating the superintendent, that he has not performed to the duties that he was hired to do? Would you be in favor of voting for termination?
I think based on a fair and impartial evaluation, we have to see where that falls. I wouldn't really want to make any judgments on that until I could see what the evaluation asks for and what it looks like and what the response is.
Fair enough. And Mr. David, how about you? Same question with you.
Yeah, as to echo Jenny, we need to establish those metrics by which we grade, pun intended, the superintendent. It's much like any job that you hold, right? Like I get annual evals from my managers and whatnot, and we both know what I'm getting graded on or what we're rated on. So there's no room for misinterpretation, right? So we establish those metrics. Some of them might be as simple as like graduation rates, teacher retention rates, etc. And then we'll continue to work on refining the other metrics that we can evaluate him on. And if he hits those metrics, then so be it. If he doesn't, then what the result may be. But we have to hold him accountable to the metrics that we establish.
Understood. Thank you so much. And Ms. Sandra, if you're there, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you see me?
Nope. We can hear you, but we can't see you. We can see you now.
All right. Basically, I agree with Jenny and David. We can't really just come out and say, "Oh no, he's gone." That's not right. We really have to evaluate him. He has to be evaluated, and based on that evaluation and looking at his contract, then we will come to a sound and fair decision. The evaluation and his contract.
Understood. We're starting to wind down this podcast, and I'd like to thank the three of you again for coming on during this extremely busy schedule, and you're in the final leg of campaigning. So I want to give each of you a minute or two with closing thoughts or anything you would like to say to our watching audience. And let's start with you, Mr. David.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Ratliff. And thank you to the community for coming out and watching. And I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank my colleagues, both Jenny and Sandra, for taking the chance on me to include me into your team. It's been quite the experience. I've grown both as a person and as a community member. I'm excited for what the future has to offer. I'm confident that the three of us will be in those seats, and will make the proper decisions that are student focused. And we're ready for the work. I know it's an uphill battle, but we're ready. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then next, Madam Sandra, please.
I would not have wanted to be on this journey with anyone other than David and Jenny. They are so young and so energetic, and they have such principles. I am so blessed and honored to be on this ticket with them. And I've learned so much. You know, they say when you get older, you get wiser. As you are older, you learn so much. And I am just so appreciative of being a part of this phenomenal ticket. And I would truly like to thank all of our supporters and thank you for just having faith in us and just listening to us, and let us listen to you. So thank you. It's been an honor.
Awesome. Thank you. The honor is ours. And finally, Miss Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on again. It's so nice to talk to all of our people and all of our communities and to listen. Proviso High School really needs change, and we cannot continue on the path that we're on. We need to build a strong foundation that's sustainable for our students to achieve on. Sandra, David, and I are dedicated as board members to act on rebuilding that foundation and be really good stewards for District 209. We want to ensure proper management of our finite resources, rebuilding respect, collaboration, restoring transparency, accountability, and reestablish putting the needs of our students first. Proviso is such a special place to live. It's been my home forever, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. So I thank you for having us. And also please consider voting for Hixson, Barbahen, and Ocampo on April 4th, if you haven't already, for early voting. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all three candidates. Very well said. Very well said. Early voting is going to go on for a couple more days, but then Election Day is Tuesday, April 4th. Please go out and vote, whether you vote for HBO, Sandra Hixson, Jenny Barbahen, or David Ocampo, or anyone. The goal is to vote. You vote, the community will thrive. The community will live. But if you don't vote, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. So please take the time to vote on Election Day. I am Dr. Reggie Ratliff. Tune in next time for our next phenomenal guests, and like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. And until next time, God bless you, be safe, vote, and have a good night.